Here's how this crazy story kicks off. Humanity was on a roll wrecking Mother Nature, so the goddess decided to shake things up. She unleashed dungeons across the globe, and if people couldn't pass her trials, well, let's just say things were about to get apocalyptic. The scene shifts to Kai-kun proudly waving, showing the number 4 on his hand as he calls out to Hinata, expecting praise. Hinata, embarrassed, admires him, but Kai quickly teases him, wrapping an arm around his neck and mocking him for wanting to explore dungeons despite being level 0 before walking away. Left behind, he sadly recalls how, after dungeons appeared on Earth, the world changed, levels were born, and the strong began to devour the weak. As the weakest explorer, he could only endure it. He also sadly remembers how, back in class, Kai-kun used to mock and tease him for dreaming of exploring dungeons despite having 0 level and the lowest rank. He had humbly admitted that even with such low ranks, he still tried with hope to improve, which only irritated and angered Kai even more. Yet he never gave up. Not just Kai, but even people in his hometown mocked him for his weak level and rank. Hinata left his hometown and enrolled at Seishin High School to escape the constant ridicule. But now, seeing Kai-kun again fills him with dread, especially when Kai loudly introduces him as the 0-level boy, making sure everyone sees him as the weakest. But his thoughts are interrupted when a spaceship-like airship announces today's Explorer rankings. He looks up happily, knowing the rankings are based on dungeon achievements, and the top 100 explorers are celebrated as heroes. However, a hint of worry lingers in his heart. Dungeons are dangerous places, and with his low rank, no one would want him as a teammate. He is shocked when he notices a few students staring in surprise in a direction where a girl with golden hair flowing in the air and a cold, emotionless face appears. Their excitement is clear. She is the strongest S-rank explorer and the daughter of the Kamui clan leader, now joining their student council. Kai-kun, hardly believing it, immediately thinks of talking to her, dreaming that maybe he could even get her to go out with him. In class, when the teacher asks everyone to introduce themselves, our lad is stunned to find himself sitting right next to Kamui Hinata. Feeling embarrassed, he notices Kai-kun and the other students shooting him angry looks. When it's her turn, Kamui Hinata stands up coldly and introduces herself with just her name, shocking everyone with her brief and distant introduction. Then, on the teacher's instruction, Hinata hurriedly stands up, so panicked and excited that his chair falls over behind him. Flustered and losing control, he introduces himself as Suzuki Hinata, a name very similar to the S-rank girls. Blushing and awkward, he hesitates while explaining that he hasn't joined any club yet, and smiling nervously, he even boldly invites her to join his team. Hinata stands in front of the dormitory, surprised by how big the building is. Kiyono, the dorm supervisor, walks over and hands him a rulebook, telling him to read it carefully because she will be relying on him from now on. She then moves on to the next student, while Hinata happily looks down at the rulebook. Following the rulebook, Hinata unpacks his things and then heads to the cafeteria for the welcome meeting hosted by the dorm president. There, a cheerful girl, excited about everyone's high ranks, suggests forming one big group, which the boy beside her proudly agrees to. Kamui Hinata also nods, but when she notices Suzuki Hinata, she curiously asks him to introduce himself. Embarrassed, Hinata explains and also reveals that he holds the lowest F rank. Everyone is shocked, especially the excited girl, who shouts in disbelief, saying that Seishin High School only supports skilled explorers. Feeling embarrassed, Hinata nervously holds his glass to drink water, still confused about how he was accepted into the school. Then teasingly, the girl asks if he wears gloves to hide his rank. Hinata sadly admits it, knowing that ranks show a person's potential power. Nowadays, humanity judges potential at birth, with S rank being the highest and F rank the lowest. But he becomes shocked when the girl looks at him with encouragement, saying that even with the lowest rank, if he works hard, he will be rewarded someday. The boy also agrees and tries to cheer him up, saying he can still raise his level. However, the girl calmly teases him again, saying she has never heard of an F-rank person succeeding. Although Hinata feels disappointed, he doesn't lose hope because he knows it's true. He is an F-rank with level 0. Lying in his assigned room 307, Hinata reflects on his rank when he gets a message from his younger sister, excitedly asking about his first day and sharing her goal to join the same school next year. But Hinata, feeling down, places his hand over his eyes, remembering the real reason he entered this school: to become an explorer, earn money, and create a better life for his sister and mother. Thinking of his sister's face, Hinata, feeling motivated, sits up and decides not to talk to her until he succeeds. With renewed determination, he stands up and heads to the entrance of Dungeon E-117, where a guard stands at the gate. Remembering his mother's advice, who had told him about the nearest beginner's dungeon, he recalls her smiling and urging him to first take care of his life and then work hard. He smiles, feeling encouraged, and admits to himself that he's ready to take on this challenge. Now he stands in front of the reception, calling out but seeing no one. Suddenly, he's shocked when he notices someone trying to stand up from under the table, only to hit her head badly on the surface. Holding her head, she welcomes him and, recognizing his school uniform, immediately decides to give him a license. However, as she looks around in a panic, searching for the license box, she hurriedly checks the back before turning to him and asking him to wait while she moves to fetch the license register. He feels disappointed by her carelessness. Hinata stands alone, staring at the crystal ball that evaluates potential, with its color indicating the rank. Eager to try it, he places his hands on the crystal, which begins to turn a dark, blackish hue. He watches in silence, knowing that the color of the crystal reflects one's rank. If it's black, it means no ability, level 0, as if devoured by darkness. As the darkness surrounds him, he feels a deep sense of disappointment, wondering why this has happened to him. Meanwhile, the receptionist excitedly holds the license box and moves toward the counter, only to be shocked when she sees no one there. She calls out repeatedly, confused, wondering if they left for home. On the other side, Suzuki Hinata feels the darkness closing in, like sinister hands reaching for him. It feels as though he's falling downward into a void, and he screams in pain, terrified that he might be falling into hell. Suddenly, he feels a jolt and slowly opens his eyes, but the surrounding darkness makes it impossible for him to recognize where he is. He is shocked to hear a voice from a monitor announcing that, due to his hardships, he has acquired the skill Dungeon Information. The voice also mentions Lucifer's Fall being analyzed, leaving Hinata confused and unsure if he's inside a dungeon. Before he can fully understand, the same voice informs him that he has gained another skill, surrounding exploration, due to his struggles. But then, pain hits him as he feels something stretching and striking his body. The system announces that he's acquired the resistance to foreign objects skill. He screams in agony, bending down with pain as the system continues to speak, notifying him of his new skill. He falls to the ground, clutching his neck in pain. The system continues announcing that his resistance skills are evolving, first to high levels and eventually to immunity against abnormal states. Through the pain, he scratches the ground, barely able to speak, shouting for someone to help him. As he wakes up in his own room, he sits up quickly, relieved that it was just a dream. He knows that fainting in the dungeon means instant death, but as his hand touches the ground, he realizes the truth. He's still in the dungeon. Fear and worry flood him, remembering the voice that had been explaining skills, like something from a game. Suddenly, a screen pops up with a list of all his skills. Although confused, he thinks he must have automatically gained the skills when needed. Not fully understanding his surroundings, he decides to move forward and look for an exit. His environment exploration skill activates, revealing a map on the corner of the screen. He also realizes his altered stare immunity skill is keeping him alive, as he feels the effects of extreme poison and paralysis in the air around him. Still confused about how he can see the stars and distant castle despite the extreme darkness, the system notifies him that his night vision skill has improved due to hardship. This excites him, as he can now clearly see his surroundings. Thinking about his knowledge of dungeons, he recalls that they often have traps, but since this is an F-rank dungeon, he feels less worried. Spotting some water nearby, he excitedly runs toward it, thinking it will help with his dry throat. Although he's not hungry, he dips his hands in the water and drinks without thinking. However, the horrible taste makes him immediately spit it out. At the same time, the system notifies him that his medium vitality recovery has evolved. He panics, thinking that danger means monsters are approaching. He quickly looks around, but seeing no movement, he realizes the water must have been poisoned. In a hurry, he throws the remaining water away, causing it to splash. Although he feels relieved that his skills saved him this time, he decides to be more careful from now on. Cautiously walking through the forest, clinging to the stones for support, he grows faint and tired, but he feels disheartened when he sees no exit in sight. He wonders if it's okay to enter the dungeon without a license, but his thoughts are interrupted by a strange, dangerous feeling. Sensing something is off, he quickly hides behind a stone wall. As he peeks out, he spots a massive black monster, and his heart races in fear. To stop himself from screaming, he immediately covers his mouth. Terrified of the giant monster, he realizes that with his low abilities, he's facing something much stronger than the weak monsters he expected. Thinking this might be the dungeon's boss or another powerful creature, he decides to wait, hoping the huge monster will leave soon. As he turns around, the sound of a tree trunk cracking under his shoes draws the monster's attention toward him. Fear sweats down his face as he looks back, realizing the monster is now chasing him, its sharp claws and long tongue ready to strike. Terrified, he uses all his strength to run, while the system tries to inform him of the danger, but he quickly interrupts it, shouting that he already knows he's in danger. The system continues, announcing that due to the danger, his speed has been boosted. He tries to outrun the monster, but it's still chasing him angrily. The system updates, saying his speed is now increased to medium, making him run faster, but the dragon is still hot on his tail. Then his speed reaches a high level, and he runs even faster, but the dragon is still chasing him. Finally, the system notifies him that his speed has reached hyperspeed, allowing him to run as fast as light. After a while, he stops, feeling relieved that he's escaped. But when he looks around, he's still surrounded by the forest and feels confused. Despite running at such high speeds, he's still here. Turning around, he sees the giant monster glaring at him, which sends a fresh wave of fear through him. Still standing before the monster, fear grips him. For a moment, he thinks of fighting back. After all, defeating this monster might reward him with more skills. Gathering his courage, he charges toward the beast. But as he sees its massive, horrifying mouth, doubt creeps in. His fear heightens when the monster leaps into the air and lands near him, kicking up a storm. He tries to attack, but the loss of energy from his previous escape causes him to falter, and the dragon knocks him into the air. He crashes to the ground, gasping and sweating, staring up at the creature. The system announces that his endurance skill has increased due to the danger, which gives him a little hope. He realizes the monster isn't attacking him immediately, and that's when he notices the deadly poison lake near his feet. Without hesitation, he scoops up the water in his hands and throws it at the monster, causing a splash of light on its skin. He quickly refills his hands and throws more water at the creature, watching it growl in pain as it seems to be wounded. Noticing that the monster is afraid of the poisoned water, he throws it again. To his shock, the monster's body begins to burn and disintegrate into the air. Suddenly, a reminder from the dungeon's rulebook flashes in his mind. Be cautious of monsters even after defeating them. Finally, looking at the monster's lifeless body, he smiles in relief, thinking about how he could utilize its bones and skin. At that moment, the system announces the activation of his monster dissection skill, recognizing his clever idea. He feels a bit puzzled seeing this skill listed in the active skills box. After a moment of realization, he understands that active skills are those that are used directly, while passive skills are always active. With this understanding, he decides to use them wisely depending on the situation. Excited, he activates the monster dissection skill. In a flash of light, the monster's bones and skin are neatly separated into two piles. He can't help but feel exhilarated by the large amount of materials he's gathered. Then his eyes catch a glimmering magic stone. He remembers hearing that in an E-rank dungeon, such stones are rare and highly valuable. He realizes that this stone can be used for magic or energy generation, and it would fetch a good price if sold. With the hope of obtaining a magic bag to carry all his spoils, he eagerly folds his hands and wishes for it twice. When nothing happens, he feels a wave of disappointment and bends down. Suddenly, the system announces that he has acquired dimensional storage for his clever idea. His excitement grows as he sees the new skill, feeling a sense of satisfaction at being able to store his items in a magical bag. It feels almost unbelievable to him that, with just a thought, he can now store everything in his bag. He then tries to store the poison water, holding it in his hands, but notices that it cannot be stored. Confused, he wonders if it's because he can't store things in the dungeon or if liquids are excluded. He quickly dismisses this thought and decides to keep moving forward. As he walks through the darkness, a sense of disappointment weighs on him. Despite defeating such a giant monster, he can't shake the feeling that his efforts are futile. He clenches his fists in frustration, thinking that his level is still 0. No matter how hard he tries, it seems like his level will always remain at 0, leaving him disheartened. As he carefully walks deeper into the dungeon, he spots a group of rabbit monsters nearby. Instantly, he decides to quietly move away without drawing their attention. However, just as he cautiously retreats, his foot accidentally presses down on a tree trunk hidden beneath the leaves, creating a loud crack that immediately alerts all the monsters. Feeling both puzzled and irritated by the endless tree branches scattered around, he grits his teeth in frustration. At that moment, the system announces the activation of his trap detection skill, triggered by the difficult situation. Realizing that he had stepped into a cleverly hidden trap, he tightens his stance. Now all the rabbit monsters leap into the air, flying toward him with furious expressions and sharp, long black claws ready to attack. Although he braces for a fierce battle, he quickly notices that their speed is much slower compared to the gigantic monster he faced earlier. It dawns on him that thanks to his speed transcendence skill, the attacks and movements of weaker monsters now appear sluggish to him, giving him a huge advantage. Now grasping the situation, he gathers his courage, clenches his fists, and dashes toward the rabbit monsters. With a sharp kick, he sends one flying and is amazed by his speed. Without wasting time, he quickly starts punching and striking every monster around him. After a while, the system announces he has gained the bare hand strengthening skill through battle experience, exciting him even more. He knew that with enough effort, anyone could earn new skills. Fueled by joy, he keeps hitting the monsters with even more energy. The system continues announcing new skills like martial arts mastery and fear resistance, shocking him. Now with fear gone, he feels completely fearless. Though his level stays stuck at 0, he still feels thrilled to have gained so many powerful new abilities. Thinking he had no level and might burden his future party, he feels even more motivated to gather more skills, believing that hard work would eventually bring rewards. After defeating all the monsters, he quickly stores their meat, skin, and magic stones into his magic bag. Although he becomes suspicious of the strange size of the magic stones, focusing on his survival, he stores them without much thought and continues searching for the exit. After walking for a long time, he finally spots a sharp flash of light and grows excited, realizing it's the exit. Thinking about his first monster fight and dungeon exploration, he excitedly runs toward the light. Suddenly, he finds himself standing in front of a receptionist girl. Confused and puzzled, he stares at her, while his sudden appearance startles her so much that she falls backward in shock. As she recovers and scolds him for making such noise at the reception, he immediately apologizes, feeling embarrassed. When she politely asks if he was the one who visited yesterday, he becomes even more confused, wondering if he had been unconscious the whole day, but still feels relieved to be alive. His thoughts are interrupted when the receptionist curiously asks if he has a license, explaining its benefits. Upon his request for one, she excitedly brings out the license box and instructs him to place his hand on it. As he places his hand on the box, black smoke suddenly rises, shocking the receptionist girl. Embarrassed, he explains that the smoke is caused by his 0-level rank. The girl, stunned, screams in disbelief, drawing confused stares from nearby people. Quickly regaining her composure, she awkwardly apologizes, while he simply brushes it off, already familiar with his situation. Removing his hand and seeing the mark on its back, he feels relieved, knowing that even if he can't defeat strong monsters, he can still collect magic stones to bring valuable gifts for his sister. The receptionist happily congratulates him on becoming a full-fledged explorer, and he gratefully accepts. His attention then shifts to the announcement from a spaceship, which reports the addition of a suspicious individual among the new explorers, calling it a rare case since exploration permits are already overwhelming. Hearing this, he excitedly vows to work hard and someday build a happy life. However, his unknown entry into the Explorer Society sparks unexpected events, because no one, not even himself, knows his true identity. Now standing in his dirty clothes at the shopping center, he tries to exchange the items he collected from the dungeon. However, when he places the magic stone on the machine, it refuses to accept it, leaving him confused and worried. The system advises him to contact the Rare Items Purchase Center for such trades. Still puzzled, he places all his other materials, but the machine also rejects the strange skin and bones. Thinking the machine might be broken, he finally puts a small stone on it, and is stunned when the screen flashes with a reward of nearly 300,000 yen. His eyes widen in disbelief that even a small rabbit's magic stone holds such value. Though he has more stones, knowing that handling a large transaction as a high school student could cause trouble, he wisely decides to withdraw only one for now. Now returning to the dormitory, he feels exhausted. The cleaner, Shino-san, warmly welcomes him back, and he humbly apologizes for not showing up yesterday, explaining that he had gone to explore the dungeon. She cheerfully praises his effort but gently advises him not to overwork himself. When he curiously asks if she believes in him, she teasingly smiles and says anyone would, especially after seeing his filthy clothes. Noticing how filthy his clothes are, he feels embarrassed and decides to wash them immediately, but is stunned when Shino-san calls him Explorer Suzuki and warmly congratulates him. Shocked at first, he quickly bows and humbly thanks her. As he heads to the laundry room, holding his dusty clothes, he reflects on Shino-san's kindness. Suddenly, a girl winks and teases him about how dirty his clothes are, then smiles and casually remarks that most explorers end up like that. Introducing herself as Fuji Hiroto, he introduces himself in return. As he tosses his dusty clothes into the washing machine, Fuji curiously asks which dungeon he explored. When he mentions E-rank dungeon 117, she looks surprised and impressed. Most beginners aim for easier ones. He shyly admits he was forced into it, but managed to survive somehow. Her casual expression turns to shock when she learns he went alone, knowing how risky it is even for veteran teams. Embarrassed, he explains he plans to join a group next time. With a cheeky wink, Fuji kindly offers to tag along, saying she might not be strong but could still be helpful in E-rank. Her warm gesture makes him smile, giving him hope that he could be useful to someone too. Now seated in class as another day passes, he's suddenly startled when Kei-kun storms in from behind, loudly announcing his 0 rank and demanding that he follow him. Moments later, they're standing on a rooftop where memories of Kei's past bullying flash through his mind. But unlike before, he now feels calm, his fear-resistance skill keeping him steady. Clenching his fist, he tells himself that even with 0 level, he might still gain something if he faces this challenge head-on. Kai smirks wickedly and charges at him with a raised fist. But strangely, Kei's movements feel slower than before, so much so that Kai is shocked and furious to see no fear in his eyes. Though in the past, a punch from Kai would terrify him, his recent battles with dungeon monsters gave him the courage to stand his ground. Just as he readies his counterattack, a system notification appears. He's acquired the cold resistance skill, leaving him momentarily stunned. Just as the tension peaks, both boys are stunned when Kamui-san appears, her expression as icy and unreadable as ever. She calmly tells him to stop. Kai-kun, clearly annoyed, snaps at her for interfering, claiming it's none of her business. But Kamui repeats her warning with a slightly firmer tone, urging him to stop the fight. Frustrated, Kai glares at Hinata and growls, "Don't forget this," before storming off, leaving Hinata baffled at his strange behavior, especially from someone ranked in the top 10 explorers. Turning to Kamui-san, Hinata politely thanks her, but her frosty silence leaves him wondering if he'd done something wrong. Remembering his sister's words, that women's hearts are hard to understand, he tries to make sense of the situation. Then suddenly, his eyes widen in shock as the air around him chills and frost spreads across the ground. As system notification pops up, he's acquired freezing resistance. Confused and alarmed, he wonders if Kamui-san is attacking him. The freezing wind would have been fatal without his new skill. As he shivers, he remains puzzled by her true intentions. To avoid dying from the overwhelming cold released during the encounter, Hinata dashes away at full speed, aiming to find the exit while Kamui-san continues unintentionally attacking him with ice. But as he rushes toward her, expecting another strike, he's caught off guard when she backs away in fear, trembling. Confused, Hinata slows down, only to see tears streaming from her eyes. She breaks down in front of him, repeatedly apologizing. Through her sobs, she confesses that it was all driven by fear. She ponders that despite everyone labeling him the weakest, even the teachers ignoring his potential, she saw something terrifying in him when Kai-kun called him out during class. At that moment, she realized Kai wasn't facing a weakling, but someone monstrous. Panicking, she had raced to the rooftop and seeing Suzuki attacking Kai-kun, her S-rank latent ability, Blessing of the Ice God, had triggered. This powerful skill freezes enemies with divine frost. Though she normally tries to keep it in check, her fear made it spiral out of control. He saw her as an opponent and didn't freeze from her attack. Now trembling and ashamed, she cries, confessing she never wanted to hurt anyone, nor did she want to be killed herself. Still trembling, Kamui sits on the ground in tears, while Hinata watches her with concern, wondering if she's frightened from scolding Kai-kun or simply overwhelmed. Through shaky breaths, she explains that when she dropped her guard, her powers may have surged uncontrollably, not to hurt anyone, but as a desperate reaction born from fear. Understanding her intent, Hinata realizes she had only meant to help, even if her power was terrifying. With a warm smile, he quietly sits beside her and gently wipes away her tears with his handkerchief. The tender gesture causes her face to flush with embarrassment. Blushing slightly himself, Hinata shyly thanks her for protecting him, and nervously offers to help her any time she needs it. As he stands up to leave, even he is surprised by his own words. Turning back, he reassures her once more, promising his support. Kamui, still seated, gazes at his back in awe at his kindness. Then, her face glowing red, she hugs his handkerchief close, softly inhaling its scent. With a hesitant voice, she calls out to him again, cheeks burning, and shyly asks for a small favor. While she shyly asks for a favor, he feels shocked and curious, but quickly remembers his sister's advice to immediately apologize and meet any girl's needs if he ever makes one cry. Without hesitation, he reaches out and agrees to help her, earning a humble thanks in return. As they leave the dormitory together, he smiles, thinking about her ice powers and wondering if her cold expression is just her way of struggling to control them. He quietly concludes that, like any girl, she must also be scared of Kai-kun. After reaching the dorms, he tells her that he lives there and cheerfully waves goodbye. This time, she responds with a gentle smile and waves back. But after taking a few steps, he remembers his sister's advice, never let a girl walk back alone, always accompany her to the end. He quickly turns around, only to find her already walking away, leaving him puzzled and wondering if he did something wrong. Later, while eating lunch, he reflects on how hard it is to understand women's hearts since he's only ever talked to his sister. Suddenly, he's startled and nearly falls back when Fuji leans in close and loudly asks if she can sit next to him. After he nods, she excitedly takes a seat and orders a large amount of food, which surprises him. Watching her eat with such joy, he curiously wonders if she can really finish all that. As he watches her eat, he smiles gently. She looks like a cute puppy to him, but when she suddenly glares at him, as if she has read his thoughts and felt insulted, he awkwardly denies it. Changing the topic, she asks if he has any concerns. He admits he struggles to understand girls, which makes her laugh. He then shares the incident with Kamui, when he let her walk alone, though his sister had warned him never to let a girl go back alone. His spot-on imitation of his sister's words makes her burst into laughter. She excitedly explains that while his sister's advice is good, it also depends on whether the girl wants to walk with him. Realizing that the so-called Ice Princess might not have wanted to walk with him makes him feel embarrassed and confused about his earlier assumption. With a playful wink, she gives him a bold suggestion, to just ask a girl directly if she wants to go out with him. He's flustered, but she supports the idea by referencing her own sister's approach. Seeing his puzzled face again, she chuckles and says his sister must be a fun person to be around, but he instantly becomes the overprotective brother, firmly refusing to let anyone get close to his sister. Now standing in the private training room with Kamui, he excitedly asks her to begin the session, which she hesitantly agrees to. As she activates her ice powers with a cold expression, he feels relieved that he's unaffected. But when he looks at her, she seems pained and shocked, mistaking his gaze for fear. Nervously clenching her fist, she quietly asks for his help in controlling her ice god's power. Feeling embarrassed, she finally admits that to master her powers, he needs to keep glaring at her. At first, he's shocked, but then realizes this must be the favor she mentioned, because when Kai-kun glared at her, she lost control of her powers. Understanding the situation, he agrees and begins staring at her, to which she gratefully thanks him. Although he's doing his best to help her overcome her instability, his expression looks too gentle, prompting her to ask for a more intense, intimidating glare. Realizing her concern, he quickly apologizes and shifts to a fierce stare. This time, it works. She reacts with anger, and soon they're both locked in a fierce staring match. But suddenly, she sits down and starts crying, alarming him. He rushes to her side, only for her to ask, confused, if he's gotten stronger since yesterday. He hesitates, then denies it, thinking that while he's gained new skills, his actual level hasn't increased, so he can't be considered stronger. Understanding the situation, she brushes off her earlier concern and apologizes for crying, which only makes him more panicked. He immediately blames himself for making her cry. With a flushed face and trembling voice, she shyly asks why he's being so kind to her. Embarrassed, he explains that since she cried because of him, he felt responsible, just like he would if it were his little sister. Curious and cheerful now, she eagerly asks about his sister. With a soft smile, he warmly describes his adorable and proud younger sister. Watching her genuine smile, he realizes that when she isn't burdened by her ice powers, she shows her emotions beautifully. After their training ends, he looks around at the frozen surroundings and considers melting the ice. Just then, the system notifies him of a new skill, ice melting, and he decides to give it a try. But when nothing changes, he grows worried, since he genuinely wanted to melt the ice using his powers. When she explains that this godly ice power is difficult to melt, and that she's the only one permitted to use this training room, so it wouldn't trouble anyone else. Still, not wanting her to feel sad seeing the frozen surroundings, he wishes to clear it for her. Just then, the system announces that he has acquired the absolute ice disintegration skill. Filled with renewed motivation, he extends his hands toward the ice, and both of them are amazed as the ice begins to melt. After successfully clearing the room, he gently advises her to head home without any worries. She gazes around happily, hardly believing the ice has truly vanished. Now under the cold, cloud-covered sky, they walk side by side. Meanwhile, Kai-kun and a few other students spot them together, growing jealous and suspicious, wondering if the two might actually belong to the same party. At a certain point, just as she waves goodbye, he hesitantly calls out to her and nervously asks for permission to walk home together. Seeing her startled expression, he hurriedly clarifies that it's only to help in case her powers spiral out of control. Realizing his sincere intentions, she shyly nods with a blush, and once again, her emotions trigger an ice surge. She gently requests his company, and he calmly suppresses the sudden ice with his powers. Her soft thank you makes his cheeks turn red as well, and with a warm smile, he welcomes her back. Side by side, they begin walking toward her home. It's been a few days since their training started, but he still feels guilty and worried about his sister's comments, as he makes Kamui-san cry almost every day. Although Kamui politely tries to assure him not to worry, he believes that as a true man, it's his responsibility. So, as usual, he accompanies her home again. After arriving at her house, he's shocked when a smiling woman introduces herself as Arina Hinata's mother. Embarrassed and nervous, he awkwardly introduces himself too. Her warm smile and mention of hearing about him from her daughter confuse him even more. He wrongly thinks she's angry at him for making Kamui cry. When her mother kindly invites him inside, he panics, mistakenly believing she plans to punish him by cutting his fingers. At home, a maid offers him coffee and politely asks him to relax until Lady Arina arrives. He thanks her but feels uneasy in the unfamiliar place. Noticing someone sitting a few meters away, he nervously approaches and calls out to him. The old, intimidating man turns around, staring sharply, as if questioning whether he was really noticed. Knowing he had earned stealth detection through much effort, he panics under the old man's piercing gaze, wondering if it's just due to his age. But this old man suddenly leaps into the air and kicks at him, shouting that he's not that old. Shocked that the old man could hear his thoughts, he suddenly gains the mind-reading resistance skill. Seeing this, the old man, now clearly impressed, smiles and praises Suzuki's good judgment before calmly walking away. As he returns to reality, Kamui-san enters the room in her cozy home clothes, her cheeks slightly red as she shyly asks about his earlier comment. He hesitates, but with a blush of his own, he nervously compliments her appearance. Embarrassed, she blushes deeper, feeling awkward about her uncontrollable destructive powers. When she sits beside him, he becomes increasingly nervous. Their closeness and her overwhelming presence almost make him lose control of himself. Just as he fears he might lose composure, the system suddenly announces his acquisition of the waste decomposition skill, bringing him a sense of calm and helping him relax. As her mother returns, she gently bows and apologizes for the wait. He quickly waves it off, complimenting the delicious tea to ease the tension. However, when her mother suddenly gets straight to the point and asks him to listen carefully, he becomes anxious, wondering if something serious is about to happen to him. But instead of scolding, she opens a box and presents him with the Kamui family's exclusive card, granting him unlimited use. He's left completely stunned and speechless, knowing that with this one card, he could take care of all his family's needs. Just as he struggles to process it, Kamui-san interrupts, flustered and opposing her mother's actions, then immediately apologizes to him. Confused and overwhelmed, he wonders why he's being treated so kindly when all he's done is make her daughter cry. And just then, seeing Lady Arina smile with tears in her eyes leaves both of them frozen in shock. She explains with a bittersweet smile that until just a few years ago, she couldn't even argue with her daughter like this. Shocked, he carefully asks if she had always been this emotionless at home, just like she was at school. She quietly nods in agreement, realizing now that every day she worked hard with him just to control her powers and spend happy, peaceful moments with her mother. He clenches his fists, feeling frustrated at himself for not truly understanding her. Her mother and the maid then deeply bow, earnestly requesting him to continue helping Kamui-san control her powers so they can share even more joyful moments together. Seeing Kamui-san's tearful smile, he understands that thanks to his abilities, she's been able to enjoy these precious times. However, suddenly, he firmly apologizes and refuses to accept their proposal, shocking everyone in the room. Instead, with a determined heart, he declares that he wants to help her simply because he cares, without expecting anything like the credit card in return. His heartfelt sincerity makes Kamui-san blush deeply while her mother watches him stunned. When her mother, still concerned, asks him once more if he would be willing to assist Kamui from now on, he immediately agrees but emphasizes that Kamui's own wishes should come first. Turning toward her daughter, Lady Irina gently asks for Kamui's decision. Flustered and panicked by the sudden question, Kamui stands up abruptly and runs away, leaving everyone frozen in surprise. Worried, Suzuki instinctively starts to run after her, fearing that her uncontrollable powers might freeze the mansion again. But as his newly awakened water seal skill activates, he feels reassured and decides instead to let her be, believing that she needs some quiet time alone to sort out her feelings. Hiding behind the door, he secretly peeks at Kamui practicing with her sword. Just then, the system announces that by passing through the stealth skill gate, his ability has evolved into absolute shadow. After a long session, Kamui, exhausted, sits down and quietly begins to cry. He softly approaches from behind and gently calls her name, but she gets startled by his sudden appearance, prompting him to immediately apologize. Watching her sadly lower her head, she quietly confesses her fear that because of her uncontrollable powers, she can't talk or touch others like normal. Seeing her pain, he gives a warm smile and once again takes responsibility for making her cry. He also expresses his worry about her exhausting herself every day. Moving closer, he gently wipes her tears with his handkerchief, reassuring her that he will always stay by her side. Blushing deeply, Kamui, overwhelmed by emotion, carefully touches his hand, a touch she hadn't dared to share with anyone in a long time. Then, placing his hand against her cheek with a soft blush, she smiles tearfully and thanks him from the bottom of her heart. Both of them sit silently, their cheeks flushed red, when suddenly the old man loudly calls out to them, leaving them both embarrassed and panicked. Kamui, trembling, introduces the old man as her grandfather. Laughing heartily, her grandfather praises her choice with a bright smile. When grandfather asks about the strategy used to stop her ice powers, he hesitantly explains that it's thanks to his special skills. The grandfather, surprised, activates his powers as well, but when he sees Suzuki standing calm and unshaken, both he and Kamui are left even more stunned. Trying to keep his cool, Suzuki nervously asks the old man about his true intentions, to their complete shock and sending Kamui into a blushing frenzy. The grandfather bluntly declares that Suzuki should marry his granddaughter. Before Suzuki can even process the words, Kamui, overwhelmed with embarrassment, activates her power and delivers a lightning-fast kick that launches her grandfather into the sky. Turning to Suzuki, her face bright red, she shyly pleads with him not to take it seriously. As they return, Lady Irina warmly welcomes them back. Meanwhile, he becomes tense upon seeing Kamui's father, Akira Hinata. Nervously stammering, he introduces himself, while Kamui joyfully welcomes her father, causing Akira to chuckle kindly, having only heard about Kamui's changes from his wife, but now witnessing them firsthand. Grateful, Akira sincerely thanks him for everything, and he awkwardly accepts the praise, feeling shy yet happy. After a long time, the family is finally sharing a heartwarming moment together. Later, as he politely thanks them for the meal and prepares to leave, he senses soft footsteps behind him. Turning around, he finds Kamui standing shyly, her face glowing red. Curiously, he asks if something's wrong, only for her, blushing furiously, to suggest he start calling her by her real name, making his heart race wildly. Flustered and crimson-faced, he hurriedly asks about the time, trying to calm himself. Sensing his panic, Kamui giggles softly and with a bright smile, encourages him to take his time and reminds him to head home safely. Lady Irina affectionately watches her daughter, and as Kamui returns, she warmly praises him for helping control Kamui's powers. Then, hugging Kamui tightly, she reassures her that no matter what, the whole family stands with her because she is their beloved daughter. She also smiles warmly, feeling happy seeing Kamui able to spend time with her family. However, a hint of concern crosses her face as she notices that Suzuki is gone now, but before she can finish speaking, Kamui-san sadly assures her that she's going back to her room. Her mother gently wishes her sweet dreams. Once again, with the same emotionless expression, Kamui silently steps into the strange, completely separated, and tightly sealed room. As Suzuki walks, he reflects on the student's comment that only one troll should spawn per party, realizing the unexpected third troll must have appeared because of his hidden presence. Spotting another troll, he instantly understands it's meant for him. Knowing his invisibility will wear off once he attacks, he plans a surprise strike and prepares to unleash his super speed for 60 seconds to engage in battle. Recalling how the students previously hit the troll's back, he leaps high and strikes the same spot, but the impact seems minor. Now visible and back on the ground, he's alarmed that even his powerful martial skills barely affected it. As he strategizes his next move, a cheerful girl's voice startles him, excitedly asking if he's from Seishin High School. Confused, he panics, thinking his unauthorized dungeon entry has been discovered. But when she happily walks closer, praising him for defeating the troll alone, he grows worried and urgently warns her to stay back, as the monster is still dangerous. The fearless girl, smiling brightly, pokes the troll without hesitation, assuring Suzuki that it's already dead. The moment she taps it, the monster collapses with a loud thud. Still anxious, Suzuki warns her it could be pretending, but she bursts into laughter, so hard that tears form in her eyes. Pointing to the troll's unmoving foot, she explains that once a monster stops twitching, it's truly defeated. Suzuki finds himself genuinely impressed by her fearless attitude. Suddenly flustered, he quickly covers his eyes. When she looks at him, confused, he awkwardly explains that her body is fully visible now. To his surprise, she cheerfully replies that she's wearing proper clothes, so there's nothing to worry about, everyone can see her. Still red-faced, Suzuki turns away, too embarrassed to even glance at her. Their conversation is cut short when another troll appears in the distance. The girl, now visibly thrilled, boldly claims this one is hers. She grabs her weapon and with a playful wink tells Suzuki she's about to show him a secret, but warns him not to tell anyone else. As she steps boldly toward the monster, he watches her closely. When she presses her foot firmly against the ground, she suddenly leaps high into the air, so high that it startles him. Swiftly dodging the monster's wide attack, she lands gracefully on the other side. He grows even more excited upon seeing her wield a magical weapon. In a flash, she launches a powerful strike, lightning crackles, and the sound of weapons clashing echoes through the dungeon. After a fierce exchange of blows, she finally manages to defeat the monster. Grinning with excitement, she winks at him, awaiting his reaction. But when she looks around and sees no one there, confusion spreads across her face. While she was still fighting the monster, Suzuki-kun quietly stepped back and activated his stealth skill, thinking it was a good chance to slip away unnoticed. He assumed she wouldn't remember him if they met again, but to his surprise, she followed his footprints and hugged him tightly, impressed by his hiding ability. She smiled and asked him to turn it off. Panicked and confused, he stared at her, but she repeated her request with a playful warning that she'd cry if he didn't listen. Seeing her cry, he unwillingly deactivates his skill and appears before her again. She looks amazed and curious about his power to vanish completely. When he bitterly admits that she still sensed him despite his ability, she excitedly reveals that it's thanks to her own rare skill. She then happily mentions their surprising compatibility, but when she notices his awkward reaction, she explains that he isn't someone who enjoys talking to people or making friends. Even as his face twists in irritation and he raises his voice, she giggles at his grumpy expression, only making him more annoyed by this strange, cheerful girl. She stubbornly explains that most people get upset talking to her, then curiously asks why he hides and even warns him about the risks if his stealth ability gets exposed. Realizing she's subtly blackmailing him, he nervously asks what her true intention is. To his surprise, she cheerfully says she just wants to form a temporary party with him. Shocked but afraid she might reveal his secret if he refuses, he reluctantly agrees. Overjoyed, she grabs his hands and starts jumping and dancing with excitement. He's left puzzled when she suddenly lays out a mat and suggests they sit and wait for the troll, while he suspiciously thinks back to the dimensional weapon she used earlier. As they sit down, she excitedly introduces herself as Shino. In return, he shares his name too. Curious, she asks about his class, and when he says he's class 3, she's shocked and playfully teases him. He just glares at her in irritation. Relaxing, she excitedly wonders if he's in the same class as the rumored S-rank students, which surprises him. He didn't expect Kamui to be that famous. Then, as Shino calmly mentions a nearby rival group, he becomes instantly alert. She quickly draws her weapon, saying she'll take the front while suggesting he cover the rear. He immediately agrees, eager for his very first party battle. She leaps toward the monster, but before she can even strike, She's shocked to see how quickly he attacks it from behind. In no time, a flash of sharp light strikes, and the monster collapses, lifeless on the ground. Impressed by his speed, she looks at him in awe. As he examines the fallen creature, he curiously asks about the materials. She happily allows him to take everything, and as he excitedly stores it all in his collection box, she smiles at him. Then, as she eagerly suggests hunting another monster, he grows irritated, feeling like they're still chasing the same creature. After a long battle and gathering plenty of materials, he suggests they head home. Seeing him activate his skills to become invisible, she becomes sad. When he explains that he might not be seen by anyone, she excitedly suggests he hold her hand, saying she wants to stay with him until the end, leaving him puzzled. She warns that if he tries to escape, she'll cry loudly in front of his class. With no choice, he walks with her. As they walk, everyone notices her holding his hand, but they're puzzled since his stealth skills keep him hidden from view. Once they reach the exit, she eagerly suggests he deactivate his hiding skills. When he humbly bows and laughs, she's surprised by his reaction. He explains that his younger sister often does the same thing, which makes her even more excited. Her joyful gesture reminds him of his sister, bringing a warm feeling to his heart. She shows amazement at his stealth skill, which he happily yet shyly denies, explaining it's how he managed to enter the dungeon. As she admires his strength and urges him to enter normally next time, he immediately and nervously insists he's not strong. Watching him seriously, she begins to understand his whole personality. Then, with excitement, she invites him to join a party to the E90 dungeon at exactly 10 a.m. He hesitantly agrees, thinking he only needs to stay with her for today, but it doesn't seem like that's the case. Back at his dormitory, he relaxes wearily when Fuji suddenly bursts in, excitedly asking if he's still puzzled by the girl's behavior. He laughs with embarrassment, realizing his guess is spot on. Shifting the topic, he asks about Fuji's dungeon run after noticing some strange stains on his gear. He proudly announces that he explored the D86 dungeon and eagerly praises the strength of its elite members. Impressed by his ability to fight alongside top-ranked explorers, he feels a rush of motivation. With determination in his eyes, he vows to train hard like them so he won't be a burden to anyone, leaving him momentarily stunned. Then Fuji excitedly explains the two types of explorers, the maintenance group and the conquest group. The maintenance group is responsible for patrolling cleared areas, which helps keep the death rate low in those zones. Meanwhile, the conquest group ventures into unknown territories, often facing deadly risks due to uncharted paths. When he nervously asks why he chose to join such a dangerous group, he responds with enthusiasm, explaining that while many people think the same way, being part of the conquest team also brings plenty of benefits. He then excitedly points toward the explorer-ranking aircraft displaying valuable information, hinting at the rewards that come with such high-risk missions. He explains that by exploring unknown floors as part of the conquest group, one can earn high points, instantly boost their ranking, and even reach the top 10, who receive special treatment and attention from around the world. Then, lowering his voice, he secretly mentions a mysterious reward given only to the conquest group members. This reward is shrouded in mystery, said to be beyond human reach and to have strange effects. He listens attentively and nervously as he adds that many believe achieving that reward is the key to reaching S rank. Finally, he reveals that the person holding rank 1 is said to be unbeatable by anyone. The next day, he sits restlessly in his room, deep in thought about explorers, especially the mysterious unregistered one who recently shot up to rank 1. Confused, he suddenly wonders if Fuji might also be involved in the rankings. Glancing at the clock, he decides to ask him directly. But then, noticing it's already 9:45, panic floods over him. He suddenly remembers his promise to meet Shino at the D90 dungeon by 10 a.m. Frantically, he rushes to change clothes, trembling with fear, knowing it usually takes him an hour to reach that place. He's not only worried about being late, but also terrified of how she might react. Meanwhile, on the other side, Shino stands cheerfully at the dungeon entrance, happily waiting for him. Using his dungeon analysis and incredible speed skill, he dashes through the terrain with excitement, finally arriving at the assassin's zone right on time. There, Shino stands smiling, playfully interacting with the birds. As he arrives, still invisible, he loudly apologizes for being late, startling her since no one seems to be around. Startled, she yells at him to deactivate his skills first. He laughs awkwardly, apologizes again, and then cheerfully suggests they begin conquering this section of the dungeon. though deep down, he doubts they'll encounter anything dangerous. However, thanks to his detection skills, he suddenly senses monsters approaching and is shocked. At the same time, he wonders if she also has some sort of environmental awareness skill, as she confidently points him toward the exact direction the monsters are coming from. Upon spotting the squirrel-like monster, his monster analysis skill identifies it as a weak Kuna type, known for dropping a small stone upon defeat. Just like yesterday, she assigns him the same duty while gripping her weapon tightly. The Kuna roars angrily and dashes toward them, then leaps high into the air, shocking both of them with its unexpected movement. But before the monster can react, he slips behind it and launches a surprise attack. Fighting in sync, the two strike together. The Kuna screeches in pain, flails briefly, then crashes to the ground. Both of them cheer excitedly at their quick victory. With a joyful grin, she tells him he can take all the materials. He still finds it hard to believe they defeated it so easily, and is especially impressed by her precise combat skills. Soon after, he engages larger, more powerful monsters, and after successfully defeating them, he begins to feel genuinely impressed by his own growing strength. He's puzzled when she excitedly informs him about the entrance to the boss room. Without acknowledging his scared expression, she grabs his hand and pulls him eagerly toward the entrance. Seeing no other explorers around, he's shocked when she explains that, after defeating the boss, the entrance moves randomly. Without waiting for him to process, she places his hand on the teleportation step and steps forward into the boss room. He tries to stop her, urging her not to get so close. Now they stand before a massive black lion-type monster with sharp claws. His monster analysis identifies it as a gig, with weak light attributes, dropping a potion upon death. Terrified by the size and menacing presence of the creature, he looks pale while she gazes at it excitedly. As the monster roars and charges toward them, he recalls the guidebook's instructions to move in the right direction. Moving quickly, she reminds him of their previous fighting strategy, advising him to be careful. But when the monster breathes fire, fear floods over him, while she remains unfazed, excitedly watching the beast.
Here I am, know it's been a while. I was in denial about my love. Here I stand, I know I walked away.